And happy Saturday morning, everybody. Welcome to Coz Green Live. I'm joined today by the lovely and talented Triva Hall. And Triva Hall is a successful certified professional coactive life coach. She's a skilled motivational speaker, mentor, coach, and leader. Triva is married and has 4 children and lives in the greater Chicagoland area. Triva believes that to be the best version of yourself, the work starts within each one of us. Triva,
yes.
Welcome to the program this morning.
Well, thank you, Coz. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And you know, there's so much going on. I get emails and direct messages every day about just how difficult it is right now for a lot of people being quarantined, being isolated, this social distancing. I think we've taken too seriously. It should be physical distancing, not social distancing. So there's so much disconnection. And you know where I think some of the greatest disconnection lies is within people's hearts. They're disconnected from their authentic selves. They're disconnected from who they are and what they should be. So let's talk about that today. You're an expert at becoming the very best that you can be. I will say I met Triva, it's 4 years ago now when I was in Chicago. I lived in Chicago up in the northwest suburbs, and I was going through a coaching certification program, this proactive, professional coactive coaching program. And one of the sessions I attended for a weekend was there in downtown Chicago. And Triva was in my class. So let's start there for a second, because I'm seeing a lot of this on Facebook and social media that people are hanging up their shingle saying they're a coach. In fact, it was so funny. I saw this post and it said, you can earn your coaching certification for just $25 and then be in the coaching business. Triva, your experience was a little different to be a professional coactive coach. What was that process like?
It was a very long process. And this process, I had to go through a core curriculum from the Coaches Training Institute, which is top notch. If you want to go to any coaching training, go through the Coaches Training Institute. So I started there. And then you have a choice to either get certified or not. And I chose to get certified to be the best coach that I could be. I'm so glad. I am so thankful I went through this certification, because I truly don't believe I would be the coach I am without it. That was a year process of commitment you couldn't miss. We had to have paying clients through the entire process, and you had to pass a very intensive test to become a life coach and to understand everything there is that goes into it. So I would highly recommend, if anybody out there is thinking about hiring a coach or working with one, that you do make sure that they are certified. It's very important. And not only that, but as a coach, going through certification is when I grew myself. I mean, I had to go through this whole process that was somewhat painful at times, but I wouldn't change it. It was amazing. And I definitely would go with a certified coach, not just someone who gets the weekend training or someone who, maybe they did it online for 2 months and paid $200. It's very important. These people, we are trained in the listening levels. We are trained, we're trained in asking powerful questions. A lot of it is intuitive. And it's a very intense training. So don't take it lightly. Find the right coach. Do your homework.
It's a little more extensive than becoming an internet minister, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Been there, done that. Hey, if you need somebody, call me. And you know what? In today's world, I could marry somebody over Zoom or StreamYard. I don't even need to be there.
Right. Easy.
You said something a second ago that I think is the real key to being an effective coach. And that is when you said being more intuitive. Mm-hmm. Tell me about this intuition in the coactive model.
So in the coactive model, intuition plays a very big part of it. So if I'm coaching somebody and I feel something, and it could be just the way they look, it could be a sound they make, I as your coach, as your champion, as the person who challenges you, it's my responsibility to bring that to light for you. Anyway, so it's very important that as your coach, the one who champions you, the one who challenges you, that I bring that to the forefront. And it doesn't mean that it's truth, but it's a responsibility of mine to bring it to light for you. So then you can either say, no, that doesn't land for me, or wow, how did you figure that out? So I coach, well, now it's all over the phone and Zoom, but I will coach someone on the phone and actually be able to tell them, you know, just by the way that they sound, maybe how they're even sitting, what's going through their mind. But that's all, it's an intuitive, it's all the skills that we have learned combined that creates this beautiful harmony between the coach and the client.
What's the greatest lesson you've learned about yourself as you've coached others?
Wow. Well, and it's a work in progress. I believe that it starts within, and this does not stop. Oh, I'm great. No, this is a work in progress, and it changes all the time, you know, being the best version of yourself. So with that said, really getting to know your saboteurs. Our saboteurs are developed when we're younger, like 2 years old and up, and they're actually a survival mechanism for us as we're growing up. But then as we become adults, you don't need them anymore, but they're still there. So my biggest thing that I am still working on and will continue to work on to become the best version of myself is to work on those saboteurs that the old stories, the old messages that were given to me and that I told myself that aren't truth. And so the biggest thing is to be able to take that old story and replace it with a new story, you know, the truth, standing in your power, becoming who you truly, authentically are meant to be, to lead a purposeful life, you know, what you were created to be. So working on those saboteurs and really getting to know truths is a really big deal. That's standing in your power is very important.
Let's stay there for a second, because this may be a brand new term that some people have never heard of before. So that saboteur to me is that little voice that stands behind you that says, no, you can't. No, you can't. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not athletic enough. You're not rich enough. Sit down. Sit down. Right? And that saboteur is what holds us back from really being the very best version of us. So how do we identify when the saboteur is speaking? And then how do we defeat that saboteur?
Well, with your saboteurs, like, okay, a great example. Before I came on live, and I'm just, you know, being transparent for everybody out there to help them understand this. My old voices were, and my saboteurs were, who wants to hear you? You're too old. No, you know. So what I have to do is turn down the volume of those. First, you have to recognize those saboteurs, which are old. And that it's so complicated, but it's so simple all at the same time. It starts with you pausing and getting to know you. The truths about you, addressing past hurts, heart wounds, and taking those heart wounds. And for me, and in coaching, right, we use our captain, which would be your sage or your higher power. Even you can go there. For me, mine is Jesus, and some people it's the universe, whatever it is. But you take that and you turn the volume up of that to squash the saboteur. It's like the little angel and the little devil. The devil's telling you all these things, and then the little angel shows up on your shoulder and turns down that volume because it's truth. It's from your heart. It's what you know about yourself. It's getting rid of the lies, the old stories, and standing, because at the Coaches Training Institute, we coach from knowing that people are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, right? We do not need to be fixed. We don't need to be fixed. What we need to do is learn about ourselves, fall in love with yourself, stand in your truth. And slowly, by turning down the volume of the saboteurs and turning up the volume of your truths, it starts to create new neural pathways, right? Neuroplasticity, and that becomes more of the norm. So it's like raising the volume of one, turning down the noise of the other.
And the saboteur is a noisy soul, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And it can stop you from being who you are. And it can actually, people are sometimes stuck and they just don't understand why. And then you start going back and you start really thinking about old stories, and they realize, wow, that I thought I was over is keeping me here. It keeping me stuck, keeping me from moving forward and being, it's fear, right? Stepping into that fear. And there's a whole lot of learning. It starts inside, though. It starts with heart.
If you have a question for Triva and you're joining us on Facebook Live, you can just make a comment to the post and we'll see it. So Tanya Davis has a question for you, Triva, and she asked, how long does it take to get rid of those old voices?
First, you have to recognize those old voices, right? And everyone's different. We're not all made the same. So for one person, it may take a lifetime. For another person, it may not take any time at all. That's a question. It's addressing them, and it's intentional. It's right now I'm doing this course, which is really great. It's positive intelligence, and it teaches you to redirect those old voices by pausing when you hear them, okay? And then you do these reps. It's hard to explain, but you do these reps, and it's like stopping the voice when you hear it, when you recognize it, okay? And then you redirect it to the positive. So if you can, and it's the perspective. That's basically what it is. It's a perspective of how you're looking at things. Like, well, they don't want to hear me. I don't belong here. These people don't like me. Now switch that. That's the old story, the old voice. How are you going to switch that? What you're going to do is you're going to put it into a positive perspective and look at it in the perspective of, I do have so much to say. Maybe there's one person out there that I can touch. Maybe you're putting it into positive, taking the negative, redirecting it, putting it to the positive. So if, in answer to your question, it's different for everyone, okay? And then to get rid of those old voices, you have to recognize them first. Then you have to recognize them as they're happening throughout your day. And they come up. So it's being really aware. And then it's intentional of stopping and redirecting.
So Dan Rawls asks the question, or makes the comment that I think is powerful. It says, raise the volume of one and turn down the noise of the other. So good. And I think that's the operative word there, is noise. It doesn't serve us well.
No.
We always have to ask the question, is this serving us?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Is this serving us? And that goes in every area of your life. And right now, we're talking about really being the best version of ourselves. And what that starts with is being honest. And you and I have had this conversation before, Coz, about being honest with yourself.
Oh, that is so hard, though.
It is hard, but
right?
how are we supposed to grow if we're not honest with ourselves? It's honest, and it's taking a step back, right? Like, okay, what an example of being the honest with myself. Maybe okay, we have all different areas in our life that create who we are. What's important to you? That's where you start. What's really important to you? What matters? And during this whole pandemic, I mean, we have been on pause. This is a perfect time for you to take a step back and say, what's really important to me? And how am I showing up as my best self in all these areas, right? So, in other words, as a wife, I've been married for it'll be 34 years, right? And
Wow.
I love to say I've been married, 5 times, but to the same man, okay? And so taking that as an example is, I look at that as, how am I showing up for my husband as a wife? I have no control of him. I have no control of what he does. I have no control of his behaviors or his responses. I have control of myself. So looking at that and saying, how can I show up for him as he is today? Not losing who I am, but who he is today. How can I serve him? Same with my friendships. How can I serve my friends as my best self? How can I be there for them? I'm not responsible for how they show up for me. I'm not responsible for how they show up in a conversation. I'm only responsible for myself. With that said, I have choices. So in this pause, maybe take some inventory. What is serving you and what isn't serving you? Who are you still connected to that brings you down, that's toxic? Because it's a choice, right? What you choose to bring into your life, what you choose to bring in is what your life is going to be.
But it's comfortable. Some of those people are comfortable.
Yeah.
But when we take inventory and we sit back, we realize they're the ones that jack us up. Right? We were having a pretty good day. We started with our morning solitude. We did our reading. We went for our run, and then we get on the call with that one person in our life who just jacks us up.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you graciously disconnect from some of those noises in your life?
The noises in your life have to go if they're not serving you. And that's called self-love, which goes into boundaries, which if you have boundaries and rituals in your life, you're ahead of the game. If you don't, especially clear boundaries, it's going to be very difficult for you, because boundaries are set to teach people how we want to be treated. Okay, they're a safe place for us. Boundaries are not to hurt people. Boundaries are set to it's self-love. And again, that's why I say it starts within. It starts within. Self-love. Falling in love with yourself. And what does that mean? It's not being vain. It is not being vain. It is getting to know who you really are, not who people want you to be.
Camille Bauer asks, how can you tell if something isn't serving you?
What do you feel like? I mean, you have to get to know yourself. That's what I'm saying. It's like it starts within. What do you want? What do you need? How are you going to get there? How can you tell if something isn't serving you? Are you up at night? Do you have, is it creating anxiety for you? Do you feel a certain way that you don't like when you're there talking to this person or being in a situation? When you start to get to know yourself and you take inventory and you start pruning that tree, and you get rid of that noise, you're going to feel peace. You're going to feel some joy. You're going to feel calm. That's the goal, is to live a calm, peaceful, joyous life.
I'm on that, but Camille just says that boundaries is actually self-love. Wow. And a lot of times we don't think that, right? We think a boundary is the opposite of that. It's putting up fences, but actually a boundary saying, no, I will or will not tolerate with certain things, right? And part of that is, I hope I'm pronouncing it, Dana says, do we have to remove the negative people or can we reshape the relationship? So let's introduce another coactive term here. that I think is important, not only in a coaching relationship, but perhaps in all of our relationships. And that's to define or design the alliance. And it's never too late to go back and redesign the alliance. So let's talk about that a second, because I think that is setting up boundaries, is to design the alliance. You know, what do you expect of me? And since you have expectations of me, wouldn't it be fair to have expectations of you? Let's talk a little bit about designing the alliance.
Well, let's first say people aren't mind readers. We're not mind readers. If to set a boundary and to design the alliance, first you have to be clear, that's a key word, clear, on what your needs are from that person. And it's not, again, it's not, it's for self-protection, self-love, everything that you need, but also hearing what they need as well. It's not always just about us. In communication, it's about the other person. So it's very important that we understand what they need as well. And it's creating a safe place for both people. To do that, we design an alliance. What does it look like? What do you need? What do I need? And it's a feedback loop. It's the communication between the two people, being very clear, very precise in what you need.
Is it ever too late to redesign an alliance?
I do not believe it's ever too late to redesign an alliance. What I would say is, again, look at yourself. How am I showing up in this relationship? Have I created boundaries for myself? Really look a little deeper into just looking at it as this relationship is toxic. It's, not for me, wanting to leave the relationship. If that relationship is important to you, then just like Coz said, design an alliance, have a conversation. It starts with conversation. It doesn't mean a screaming match. What it means is communication. That means you show up as the best version of yourself, expressing exactly what you need in a kind way, in a clear way, and then also allowing that person to express what they need in a clear way, in a kind way. And the other thing is, be neutral and curious, and do not take things personally. To take the personal part out of it.
All right. You are talking about easy things, except that, right? Because the ego gets in the way.
Absolutely. The ego always gets in the way.
The ego is the enemy.
It is. It's the enemy.
So if the saboteur gets in the way of us authentically loving ourselves, let's go a little bit deeper on that, because I think sometimes when people say to love yourself, there's a thin red line that one might cross into narcissism or egocentric behavior. I heard it said, and you can respond or not, but I just thought it was an interesting observation. Somebody said, someone was playing the victim and said, "Oh, so-and-so's a narcissist." And it was an interesting observation, because somebody else then said, "Well, they're a narcissist in your relationship." In general, they're not a narcissist, but in the relationship with you, they are a narcissist. So that goes back to those boundaries again, right?
It absolutely.
And open communication, and we all have a blind self. So if I'm a narcissist in a relationship, maybe I can't see that. So the ego, the narcissist, the saboteur, those get in the way. What else holds us back from really embracing who we are, what we're capable of, and being the best version of us?
Forgiveness.
Ooh, that's a big one. Let's talk about forgiveness of oneself.
Forgiveness of oneself, forgiveness of others. We're human, right? We're human, and it's a choice to forgive. And when we forgive, we're not forgiving for them. We're forgiving for us. And forgiveness of self is so important, because I'm not who I was when I was younger. right? And maybe I did say things that I'm not proud of, or that I wanted to grow from, but I was stuck or whatever. It starts again with the heart. It really starts with knowing yourself, going back in self. Past always goes to past. Always goes to past.
Well, and when we don't forgive ourselves, we're literally in a prison, right? And if we hold a grudge against someone else, they could care less. They don't even know the negative emotions that you're holding for them. So when you forgive another person, it unlocks your door to your prison of the past.
You say it so well, Coz.
No, I get to read a teleprompter. No, I'm just kidding. It's all those years of all that programming, and every once in a while my Rolodex works and I can find something. Believe it or not, it happens. I'm not having a Biden moment right now. So it really means true forgiveness, but unconditional forgiveness. For instance, we can say, oh, I'll forgive that other person 99% of what that other person did, but that 1%, that one thing, that one thing, that's unforgivable. I'll forgive everything else except that one thing. Well, that's not forgiveness.
No, it's not. And it causes resentment when you're not forgiving. It causes resentment. And if you have that 1% that you're not forgiving, it's still there. It's stuffed in there. Right.
Well, that's the 1% that is the poison in the well, right? Yeah. You can have 99 gallons of purity, but one drop of that toxicity is going to destroy the water, so to speak. So we need to forgive our parents for every wicked, brainless, stupid, dumb thing they did. And believe it or not, our parents did the very best they could.
Yes, absolutely.
They would have done better if they could have done better, right? I didn't have the perfect parents. I'm not the perfect parent. Just ask my kids. But after I've raised my kids, I realized, you know what? My parents did the very best they could.
Absolutely.
So forgive our parents, forgive ourselves, and then forgive everybody else.
It's so important. It doesn't mean that when you forgive someone, you have to go hang out with them, or, what forgiveness does is set you free. It sets you free. My mom, she raised 5 kids on her own. And then she met my stepdad and she was with him for a bit. But, I look back now as a woman in my 50s, as a mother and a grandmother, and I look back at my mom and I have a whole new respect for her because, wow, who am I to judge her, first of all? She did I thank her for our challenges because look at her. I really believe I've turned out to be the best version of me. And I don't know that I would have if I didn't have those challenges. And my mom was a strong woman. I come from a family of strong women, really strong women.
Really? Are you kidding me? I figured you learned that somewhere.
And I guess where I'm going is the whole forgiveness piece also is looking at that person for what they have given you, right? It's not just I love my mom, and I really thank her I forgive her for anything that she's put us through, which I'm trying to get back out of this because my mom's not a bad person. She didn't do anything horrible. But I want her to acknowledge that my mom was a single mom. And in my mind, maybe my saboteurs were saying, hey, you needed more attention. Guess what? Like you said, Coz, my mom did the best that she could do, right? So I forgive that. And that also goes into those saboteurs. Friendships, even some forgiveness and friendships that I had to work on, acknowledging that person, first of all, in a kind way, for expressing how I felt. Because here's the other thing. We may be thinking something that's not even their reality. They may not even understand or know, that they had done anything wrong. So starting with the communication, so that you can forgive. You can't just, the perspectives of two different people are at play in this whole forgiveness piece. Does that make sense?
It does. And we so often think that people are thinking about us all the time, right?
Yeah.
Let's say we have an issue between someone. And so I think about it all day. It festers.
Yeah.
And then you realize, you know what? They're not even thinking about that.
No, it's like,
right? You're the one making movies in your head.
Yes.
And too many times those movies are not good movies. They have tragic endings.
Mm-hmm.
We need to create better movies in our head and sometimes give people a break. I'll be very honest. Sometimes I assume the worst. And that's my saboteur. That's how I was raised. No fault of my parents and their parents. But we're good Steven Spielberg type directors of making bad movies in our head first. And then if you're seeing bad movies, it's easy then just to go play them out. We need to stop.
Right.
Read a new script.
Read a new script.
Be a better director and say, I am calling the shots here in my life.
Quit playing victim, right? Let's get out of that victim mentality. Yes.
Oh, but that's easy, right?
Oh, yeah, sure.
So easy to be the victim.
Yeah.
Well, and this whole victim speak, I think, is really the toxicity that's a silent enemy. We talk a lot about coronavirus right now and the part it plays. I think there are some silent and invisible enemies destroying the country as well. Mm-hmm. And this victimhood is perhaps the greatest virus spreading across the country. That poor me. Woe is me, and someone else is responsible for my happiness.
Yes.
Someone else is responsible to make me happy. Mm-hmm. Talk about that for a minute as you coach others that, you know what, no one else is responsible for you becoming the best version of you except you.
Except you, yeah. And what actions are you going to take? What do you want? Like, are you content right now and not being that best version? Here's the thing, though. Some people feel they are the best version of themselves as they are, and they're content. I believe that you evolve. It changes continuously. And being and staying in that victim mentality, staying in the victim mentality does not serve you. Some people don't know they're there. Coaches help you see that. Certified and trained coaches help you see what you do not see. And that once we're there to challenge you, we're there to champion you, but it starts with truth. And again, the victim mentality, you need to acknowledge yourself and be honest with yourself. Where do you have that victim mentality? Go back, find where that started, the saboteurs, and then again, turn those down, turn up the volume of your sage, and that's how you get out of it. Because some people just don't know, Coz. They don't understand that they are in that victim mentality. And
is there a way to self-identify or to say, I'm being a victim right now? How would one know if they're not consciously going through this process? Mm-hmm. How would they self-identify of, well, I'm being a victim right now?
Mm-hmm. And the question is, what does your life look like right now? Is your life serving you? What's going on in your life? Do you see the same stories coming up, same patterns? Are you still attracted to the same type of people? Have you lost relationships? I mean, really looking at your life, not just it's your whole life, every area of your life, every section of your life. And then from there, and you may not be able to get out of it by yourself. That's where coaches come in. That's where, we are there to support you, and we're there to hear these things that you do not. or help you recognize the things that you just don't see, because they're old behaviors, they're old patterns. And it takes getting out of those old patterns and those old behaviors to get out of that victim mentality. But it first starts with honesty and recognizing those. Sometimes you need help.
And a good coach does not have all the answers.
No, we don't.
In fact, I think a good coach doesn't have any answers.
Right? You have the answers. That's right. And I think it was in Chicago. I can still see us down there at the little Marriott Residence Inn. And I think it was in that weekend group, somebody even asked the question, what's the difference between coaching and therapy? And I think there's a distinct line between coaching and therapy. And someone explained it this way, that when someone is in therapy, it's because, let's just say, they're not up to normal or, functioning, if you will, and you're trying to get somebody to that point. But coaching says, you know what, you've got your stuff together, right? Because shift happens. So you get your shift together. And once you have that, then coaching helps you get beyond that, right? Yeah. So maybe this is just, I'm doing okay. Mm-hmm. But everybody needs a coach. And some people would say, well, I don't need a coach. I have arrived. Okay, that's when I would say Bolshevik revolution. Because if you think about it, when did Michael Jordan have the very best coaching? I have to use a Chicago reference with you. We still hate the Bulls after what they did to the Jazz in the late 90s. But Michael Jordan had the best coach ever, the Sage, when they won those championships, right? His coach didn't say, oh, just go get them, guys. Right.
That's when he
Neither did Michael Jordan, though. See, neither did he. Michael Jordan didn't rely on just his coach. He took the actions. He stayed after practice. He worked harder.
He had done that his entire life, right?
Yeah, he did that his entire life. But
he still was getting coaching right up until the end.
Right.
And coaching got better. There was always something to work on. There's always something more or better that we can do. So you use a term about showing up for yourself. And in conversations you and I have had, you say that quite a bit. Help me understand more about what you mean by how can you show up for yourself?
Mm-hmm. Showing up as your best self.
Showing up as your best self. Okay, clarify that then and tell me more.
What I mean by that is it's intentional. Okay, how am I going to show up? If I'm in an argument with someone, am I going to make it all about me, or am I going to, and when I say argument, when I'm communicating with someone, showing up as my best self when I'm communicating with someone is being a listener. That's showing up as my best self, not it being all about me, and being empathetic to what they're going through. Showing up as my best self as a mom. I'm going to give that example. I'm not perfect, but showing up as my best self is actually, to my children, apologizing to them for not being the perfect mom, because I have evolved. I have taken time to really be that mom, that not even that mom, but that person that trust them, shows up for them as a listener, shows up for them as a communicator, shows up for them as my best self, meaning allowing them to grow. My daughter says, it was really cute because I apologize to them for being a hovering parent. And my older daughter, she was so cute. She said, you know what, Mom, you weren't a hovering parent. You were a helicopter with a spotlight. And I kind of laughed because showing up as my best self was saying, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm so sorry for doing the things that maybe didn't serve our relationship, but I didn't know. And so showing up as my best self is asking for forgiveness from them, being truthful, being honest, not enabling behavior, which I do. I can. I mean, I fall short all the time. Showing up as my best self is leading by example, being truthful to who I am and honest with who I am when I show up as their mother. So that's just with the kids. You show up as yourself differently in every relationship. It's not all about us. It's also about that person that's across from you, the people that you love. What are you letting in your life? You know, I mean, so.
Here's a comment for you. Will you just do the work for me? It sounds exhausting. It is exhausting, right? But you never arrive. I think that's the thing is we say, gosh, we battled, we fought, we got here. And then guess what? There's just another mountain in front of us.
There is.
Tomorrow and next week, right? We never arrive.
No, there's always work to do. And
it is exhausting.
It's exhausting. And here's another thing, showing up as my best self, okay? Like showing up today, Coz, this is out of my comfort zone, right? This is the first interview I've done, but showing up as my best self is I'm being authentic. I'm being truthful. I'm not sugarcoating things. I'm just being who I am, and I'm learning from this. So it's my best self. Right now, I'm in my best self. Tomorrow, I may look a little different. It evolves. It's different. It changes.
And for you watching live, give Triva a thumbs up or a little heart so she knows that.
I love hearts.
She is. You know what? So I know you like hearts. I noticed that yesterday when we did our pre-show. In fact, Missy Lord from Michigan said, "Hello from Michigan. OMG, love those heart pictures. Need to know where you got them." See, we're just all over the place today. We love our viewers and listeners.
And this was actually an artist out of Texas, and I loved her story. And I bought all of these because I love the sayings on them. But if you would like to know,
we can't read all of them, so pick a couple of your favorites.
Okay, let's see. Hardships often prepare ordinary people for extraordinary destiny. That's one.
Ooh. Wait, just you gotta let that one just settle. That was a that was.
When things are falling apart, they may actually be falling into place. I love that one. What if I fall? Oh, darling, but what if you fly? I love that one too. Think positive things will happen. Let's see. Positive mind, positive vibes, positive life. And it goes on and on. But they're beautiful. I love them. Her and her husband.
Those definitely embody you. And you can just tell. So my CTI experience was a little different because I was working for that division of NBC Universal. So I took the opportunity to go during that year-long certification process to a different city. And I know you did it in Chicago. So that one weekend that we were there together for those 3 days in Chicago. But then I went to Boston and I went to Toronto and Atlanta and everything. And I'm glad I did because I met so many great people. But to that point, you can just tell a lot about a person when they walk into the room. And I'm not patronizing you because it was a group of great people. I mean, those 20 people that were really striving to be the best versions of themselves. But when you walked in, and I remember just when you walked in the room, it was like you carried that wall with you. You could tell there was love, there was heart. And that's why I wanted you on the broadcast today, is to just share more of that because you are your authentic self. And yesterday when we were talking, we were actually discussing, well, geez, how maybe can we help each other? And you said, well, interestingly enough, you asking me to do this interview is a huge stretch of my comfort zone. I would not have ever guessed that.
It is. This is huge. Yes. It's my
kudos to you.
Thank you so much. And thank you. Thank you for thinking of me and believing in me and respecting me for what I have to bring.
I certainly do. You're wonderful.
Learning and it's been learning, and I thank you for creating this safe space for me. I so appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely my pleasure. And I'm glad we have this forum to be able to do it. So crisis brings opportunity.
Mm.
And I've always been a little reluctant to do Zoom or StreamYard type calls because I'm like, oh, they're just so impersonal. I'd rather do it face to face. I don't know that I could do an interview with you while you're in Chicagoland, just based on resources or whatever. So this is a great resource to be able to do it. So I'm glad I listened to the voice that said, invite Triva.
Oh, God.
So as I've had my strategy of leaving corporate America and the different things that I've wanted to do, I was going to go spend some time in Hawaii in April, and then we were going to Africa in May and June. Well, the pandemic changed all that. So this is important for me to launch my coaching and me helping others too. So I wanted to talk about these types of things so that we can bring them to the forefront of the people in our lives. And so they know where they can get that resource.
Yes.
And I would say that you bring a special flavor. And well, maybe you could say this, talk about this a little bit. Women don't need to coach women and men don't need to coach men.
Oh, no. Mm-mm.
So what are your thoughts about that? How do you find the best coach for you?
Well, there has to be a connection. And in coaching, usually you do something, an initial, coaching call that you can feel the connection and you'll know. And
is there a vibe?
There's a vibe. There is a vibe. But what's really important here to understand is that you're looking for the coach, but the coach also has to have a fit with you. It's not just, that's designing that alliance. It's not just the coach takes anyone. I have to have a fit with my clients. And there's always the honesty piece comes into it where I can say, this is not working anymore. And our clients should also have that freedom to say, I'm not getting what I need, and maybe I need to go somewhere else. And as a coach, we have connections with other coaches. And so if you don't have that connection, there's another coach that you may work better with. So as a coach, I would refer you on to someone else if it wasn't working. It has to be a good fit. It's your life. You have one. I live your best life. It's a choice in how we wake up every day. It really is. It's a choice. Move your body if you're feeling a certain way. Stay in gratitude. I am so great. Every morning when I wake up, I am grateful. I'm grateful to just be able to open my eyes. And I am so grateful that I'm here and I'm rambling a lot, but I call myself out on things all the time. But I'll tell you, my kids say they learn a lot when I ramble.
We just think out loud. It's a personality style. Good. I'm the same way. And then people hold me accountable. You said this once. I was like, I don't remember saying that. I was just probably processing something. Yeah, but you said, I think I'm just processing.
I talk out loud all the time. Here's the other thing too. I just want to say, is that who are you surrounding yourself with? Who are you surrounding? Who's in your circle? Who's your tribe? We have a choice of who we surround ourselves with. Pick those people that lift you up, that bring you to a better place, that hold you accountable. Most importantly, hold you accountable. Take inventory, real important. What's going on in my life? What's not serving me anymore? Just because someone was your friend since third grade does not mean they still have to be your friend if they're not showing up for you in a positive way.
And maybe they don't show up right now, right? Maybe they're going through something too. So we need to be patient. We all go through our stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And how can you be there for them? Absolutely.
But they have to let you. And I think that's part of that boundaries too. When people have boundaries for you and say you will fit into this box, it has to work for you. So back to your whole thing of when a coach is being auditioned, so to speak, to see if they're the coach, and the coach is also saying, well, do I want to take this person on as a client? Again, that's just designing that relationship. And sometimes it's redesigning it, like we said. Yeah. So we have to have those tough conversations and redesign it, or it just doesn't work anymore. And that's not to say that it might not 10 years from now, right?
Right. Right.
Maybe somebody's not supposed to be a romantic relationship, but they could be a friend, or maybe I can have them as a friend, but I can't have them as a business partner.
That's right. Yes. It's
right?
all different. Yep.
People fit into different parts of our life. And I think we try to make them all fit into what we want or need at the time. And that's just not what's serving us right now. Just sometimes take what is as it is. To your point, you said you couldn't change your husband, but you've been married 5 times. Or did you say you fell in love 5 times? How did you say that at the beginning for those joining us?
People will say, how long have you been married? And I'll say, oh, I've been married 5 times. And they're like, really? And I said, oh, but to the same man, And I think my husband and I have a great marriage. And the reason we have a great marriage is because we work hard at it. And marriage is not easy. Relationships are not easy.
They're the hardest thing, right? If we could all be Tom Hanks on that little island and become the best version of us and just get along with us, my life would be awesome.
Oh, yeah.
99% of all of our problems are other people and getting along with other people. But
it is.
That's why it's so joyous if we can ever dial it in and figure out the combination.
Oh, I would never want to change my husband. I wouldn't want to change my
children. Come on. When you first got married, wasn't that the goal, was to train him?
Okay. So I grew up, I grew up in dysfunction. So, I had to learn.
You too? My family put the fun in dysfunction.
Yeah, I know. That's what we say. We're dysfunctional, but we're fun, right? But it's all about learning, whatever. No, well, truth be told, when I met my husband, I was in college, and my husband is very handsome, very attractive, and has a great personality. And I fell in love with probably the attraction first, and then we grew together. And I still look at him the same. I still am very, very in love with him, and he's still beautiful. We've been through very difficult times. It has not been easy. And it takes hard work. It's acceptance. And it's not being walked all over. You don't let people walk all over you. You have those boundaries. And I didn't know how to create those boundaries early on. I definitely know how to create those boundaries now. And it's just the me and doing things because I really want to, because it's from my heart. Not doing things because you have an expectation that person's going to do everything for you, because it doesn't work that way. And letting people be who they are. My children, they're all so different, and I respect every one of them for what they do and who they are. I have two of them are artists, and the other ones are, and they're all athletes in their own right, but they're just all different. And letting them be who they are, acceptance. It's important. Accepting yourself first, though. It's hard to accept other people when you're not okay with yourself.
If we're going through that perfect storm in our head, there's nothing to give away, right?
Right.
Got to settle the storm of the saboteurs first. Absolutely. And when you talked about duty, kind of we're doing what's expected. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying duty is a bad thing, right? Mm-hmm. So if we're motivated by 3 things, I think the mass of men and women are motivated by fear, right? And they live from that place of fear because they have to. And I think that's the internal self-talk is, I have to. Out of fear, I'm going to lose my house. I have to go to work, or I have to do this. I might lose my family, so I have to do this. Mm-hmm. That's a tough place to come from, is I have to. So that's why we take our spouses out to dinner once a year. But then there's a higher form of motivation, and that's duty. And self-talk is, I ought to. I ought to do this. I ought to do that.
That's
Little higher octane. But I just heard recently somebody said duty is just a beautiful term for guilt. And I thought about that, and I thought, that's true. That's kind of a middle ground of duty. I ought to, right? So I ought to, so I take somebody out to dinner once a month. But the highest, and I guess this is what we're seeking, the highest form of motivation, what causes us to do what we do, is love. And that's
Love.
jet fuel, right? So if we can get beyond duty because we feel guilty if we don't, because we want to or we choose to, that's personal power. That's personal power. You get to choose because of what you love.
But
And
yes.
I would suggest that if there's this great divide, right? They talk about the 1%ers in America. Oh, I honestly believe there's a 1% in America.
Mhm.
And it's the 1% who truly tap into the best version of them and who are motivated by love and do things on
Giving.
purpose
Mhm.
because they think different. Right?
It's
The victims say, oh, look what they have and look what they've got. They must have cheated somebody or screwed somebody.
yes.
The very best of the best are those who think different, act different, and are motivated by love. And that's hard. That's so hard to love yourself and then love others. Geez, that guy that walked around Jerusalem a couple thousand years ago in sandals got it right. Love yourself and your neighbors, but you got to start with you.
Got to start with you.
He gave us the hardest thing to possibly do.
And it starts with the heart. Heart wounds,
The heart's love, right? Where the head is fear and duty.
Yeah.
Heart, that's where love is. How do we tap into the heart? How can we tap into more heart?
Well, I like to ask my clients, what is your heart made of? Right? Is it made of porcelain? Is it made of tin? Is it heavy? I had one say it was like a bean bag. It was just kind of there. And then they envision what do you want your heart to feel like? What do you want it to look like? And because our experiences and all the things that we've gone through, it's like our heart, pieces of our heart. Imagine it just kind of it broken, right? And if you can start to learn about what those pieces of your heart are, what make up your heart, you can replace those pieces with something positive in gratitude. And again, it's like turning up the volume, turning down the noise. It's about really, it's like it's maybe you need a heart transplant, right? Maybe you need to take it out and fix it, put it back in. But it's recognizing the pieces of that heart. What's making up your heart? Our heart, some of it could be still like steel and heavy, and you're not going to let anyone in because that part of my heart was hurt. And that part of my heart, someone hurt me really bad, and I'm not going to let them in anymore. Another part of my heart could be, made out of china. It's fragile. I can't even, I don't want to touch it because if I drop it, it's going to fall and break and it's going to shatter into little pieces. So you have to look at your heart as the pieces that make it up, that make up the heart, and then really heal those pieces, those places, and then start to put your heart back together. But it's really recognizing, what is my heart made of? What pieces create this full heart, and what do you want it to be? If you want it like Anna, if you have a hard heart, you want to work on making it a soft heart, and that starts with the inside. What's in your heart, you speak, right? How you show up is usually what your heart is. It's real important. Know your heart.
And to that point, have the courage to speak your truth too, right? Right. If that's your heart, that's your happiness. I think there's so much social shaming on social media right now. I believe in X, and people line up to tell you you're stupid because no, you should believe in Y. If you believe in X and that's a core value of yours and you love that with passion, stand strong, be courageous. Also be accepting of others. That what if they're 1% right? Right. I think we do that with religion and politics. Oh, mine's the true one.
Yeah.
Well, what if they might be 1% right?
Right.
They might be 2% right. What if they're half right? And what if I'm not completely right? Well, I think we're not as courageous as we could or should be. And I'm not saying we're getting soft in this country, but we are getting soft in this country, right? We really are.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to hide behind these screens and make attacks on each other when we just need to love each other. And
well, how about staying neutral and curious?
Pardon?
How about those two words, neutral and curious? Stay neutral.
Let's have that be our thought of the day then. Neutral and curious.
Yeah, stay neutral and curious. We're not always right. Let me hear what you have to say. Gosh, I'm curious. Why do you feel that way? You know, how can we make it better? How can we work as a team? How can I serve you? How can I be here for you today? You know, someone shows up, you know, negative on social media, being neutral and curious. Take the judgment out of it. It's hard to take judgment out sometimes, especially if that's one of your saboteurs, right?
I find sometimes you just love them, and my love and sarcasm are, you know, sometimes they bleed into each other, and so I try to diffuse things sometimes with humor, and some people don't get me, and you're like, hello, I'm trying to be funny. Obviously, I'm not very good at it right now, but I'm just trying to be funny. Relax, take a suppository, relax. You're not going to get out of this life alive anyway, so why are we taking it so serious?
Yeah.
We're meant to be happy.
Yes.
We really are here to learn how to be happy.
I choose happy. I wear a t-shirt that says I choose happy. I've been accused of having a happy gene. And it's actually, my husband says I have a happy gene. I just choose to be happy. I choose to be in the perspective of gratitude every day. It's not all, like I'm always there, but as soon as I start to feel it, it's a choice to switch it into that positive. And is this really helping me at all? No. What, do I have control of this? No.
We got a good comment out of Houston. Houston, we don't have a problem. Love that. Neutrally curious. Perfectly put. Thanks, Joe, for watching today.
Neutral and curious.
I like that. I'm going to make that my mantra for the weekend is neutral and curious.
Doesn't it bring a calm? Like kind of, I'm neutral. I'm curious. But
can I also suggest, let's stay with that. But I think there is also a time to be courageous and stand for what so many people say, I know this to be true. Bolshevik. You believe something very strongly, unless, God actually showed up and told you face to face. How do you really know some of this, right? It's all faith. But if you really believe in something, right? I mean, if you saw somebody approaching an intersection and they were going to get hit, I would hope you would run, push them out of traffic, right? So there is a time and a place to be courageous and stand for truth and right.
Absolutely. Yes, 100%.
And the saboteur will tell you in those situations, sit down.
Sit down. No one wants to hear.
You don't have a voice. You're not smart enough. You're not good enough. You don't live in a big enough house to have that opinion. Right.
And that's why you have to work on those things. Turning that volume way down. It takes practice. You don't do things once. This is intentional living. You have to wake up every day and know I am going to work, on myself. These are the things that I'm working on. And it's work. It's hard work. It's not easy.
That's right.
Things that are easy.
Somebody said a minute ago, it's exhausting. It is hard work. The most important things are hard work, right? Yeah.
But
success,
the reward,
joy, happiness comes disguised in work clothes. Yeah. I'm sorry, say again.
Rewards. Your reward is great. You're living, it's being the best version of you, living your best life. And
it's a never ending journey.
Right.
And you never arrive, right?
And here's the other thing. So I was a stay-at-home mom my entire life. Hard job, right? Hard job. I thought those saboteurs were telling me, no one wants to hear you, you're too old, those kinds of things. And Julie Colbreeze, who she's a certified coach as well. And she's coffee coaching is her the name of her coaching business.
Coffee, C-O.
Coffee Coaching.
Okay.
Yeah, Julie Colbrace. She's the one who recognized that I would be a good coach. And I didn't really even understand what life coaching was at the time. And I had all my kids who were still in school, and she kept saying, you ask great questions. Are you sure you haven't thought about being a life coach? So when my youngest son was going away to college, I thought, now what am I going to do, right? What am I going to do? So I contacted Julie, and I asked her the questions, tell me about it, and she said, go to Coaches Training Institute, go to the fundamentals course, see, you'll know right away. And I knew right away in my first course, wow, this is what I want to do. Now, why I'm saying all of that is because sometimes I've had many clients feel it's too late. I'm too old. I'm settled in this job. I don't know how things could be different. It's never too late. I'm in my 50s and I feel like I'm just getting started. I'm just getting started. You don't just stop because of an age. You don't stop because of a circumstance or a challenge. You don't stop. It's never too late. It's never too late to be the best version of yourself, to live your best life, to start over. Never too late.
Triva Hall, absolutely a joy and a pleasure to spend some time with you on a Saturday.
Thank you, Coz. This was great. Thank you for getting me out of my comfort zone. I appreciate it. And I've had the best time. Thank you.
Well, and you've shared a lot of wisdom and caused me to think about some things for myself. And I've made a couple of notes here of some things that I know I can do better. It's always fascinating to me. We know this, right? I've been through the same intense MBA-like certification program you did. And sometimes you just have to be reminded of things. I think it was Epictetus said, when we get our age, we don't learn anything new. We just are reminded of things that we should know and we already have learned. So thank you for the reminder of some things that I need to focus and concentrate on too. How do our viewers and listeners connect with Triva?
The best place is Instagram. It's right there on the screen, trivahall.lifecoach, life coach. Or you can get me on my email, which is, there you go. You got it. thall@trivahall.com.
I'd like to thank our producer, and I'd like to thank my entire staff, my graphics team. I'd like to thank the cameraman, the lighting. Wardrobe sucked today. Makeup, there was no hope. But thanks to an entire team who puts this all together. And thank you again, Triva, for being here.
Team Coz.
And when this is all over, I can't wait to get to Chicago. Maybe the Cubs will start playing. They left the season hanging and they're still undefeated. I mean, I'm just saying.
Okay, well.
So go Cubs, go.
Go Cubs, go.
Thank you so much for being here. And for everybody viewing today and listening as well, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Have a wonderful Saturday. In the best. Say goodbye, Triva.
Bye. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And thank you, Coz. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
You're very welcome. Great day.